Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing a GeForce RTX 5080 in The Witcher 3 Next Gen. This one is the Founders Edition model of the card. I'm running it with the latest Nvidia drivers and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power-Ups, GPU Z, and over on the left, I'm pairing it with a Ryzen 7 9800X 3D and 32GB of RAM. Let's get into it, shall we? First things first, let's go over the settings. I'm starting at 4K resolution, and we're also going to test other resolutions. Of course, I'm using the RT Ultra preset, which has ray tracing enabled on quality and everything else here enabled as well. Anti-aliasing is currently turned off, but I will talk about it very shortly, guys. And I am using the rest of the settings set to the preset. I'm not going to enable or disable anything else, aside from like chromatic aberrations and motion blurs and stuff like that. And Nvidia Hairworks is also disabled because that's the preset. Let's go. So with these settings, without any anti-aliasing, we're seeing a lot of shimmering. You can see the chainmail here on Geralt. It looks really bad. Those rooftops as well. It's like flickering and stuff. It just doesn't look good. The grass quality as well, it's super noisy, so no AA is not the way. So we definitely require a bit of anti-aliasing here. Let's use FXAA, which is the next step up, and over here you can see that it's basically the same. So those rooftops, maybe they are a little bit less shimmery. Yeah, the grass is still pretty much the same. The chainmail might be a little bit better, but FXAA is still not the way to go, right? This is not a very good type of anti-aliasing. It's not widely used in games these days, and it's for a reason, right? Not that the current games do utilize a very good anti-aliasing type. It's usually TAA, and this is TAAU over here, which some people say it runs the game at 85% resolution scale. Other people say that it runs at native. It gets pretty much the same FPS as native resolution without anti-aliasing and with FXAA as well. So I'm not really sure it is at 85% resolution. I think it's still 100% resolution scale, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. All right. Anyway, I'm not going to be utilizing this because there's a better anti-aliasing type in this game, which we will enable through the Nvidia app, but stay with me, all right? This looks a bit blurry right now, so we don't have as much detail on the grass. You can't really see the single leaves anymore very well, especially over there near the river. But at least now the chainmail is not shimmery whatsoever. The rooftops are not noisy and shimmery either. And this actually looks really good. TAAU in this game is a pretty good implementation, especially if you're at a higher resolution than 1080p, you know. However, you do lose a little bit of detail once again because of the nature of TAA, and you also make the picture slightly softer, although it's still good looking in my opinion. Okay, so let's see the next type of anti-aliasing that we got available to us. FSR2 on quality, which is the maximum, XESS on ultra quality, which is the maximum. It's the same resolution scale as quality DLSS or FSR, and DLSS, which also has quality as its maximum mode, unfortunately. So we don't have DLAA in this game. If you want to use DLSS, you're going to be stuck with quality DLSS over here, which does look very good. As you can see, I already updated it to the DLSS 4. I'll show you how to do it in just a little bit, okay? Yeah, it looks very good, maybe a little bit sharper than the TAAU, and it gets you those 60 frames per second, of course, which definitely feel a heck of a lot better than the 40s that we were getting previously. So, yeah, this is definitely the way to go, in my opinion, if you're at 4K resolution with a 5080, maybe even performance DLSS, since DLSS 4 does look really impressive at 4K resolution. That's not to say that you don't lose detail. Like if you look at the grass, for example, yeah, the individual leaves are a bit harder to tell, especially by the river there in this like medium distance, you know, but overall, the picture looks very nice and crispy and detailed, and I really like DLSS here. But what if you want to utilize DLAA? Well, that's where the Nvidia app comes into play. First of all, you gotta get out of the game, and you want to go to the graphics settings here, The Witcher 3, scroll down here until you see the DLSS override motor preset, and this will say use the 3D application setting or the default. You want to set it to latest to utilize DLSS 4, which I've already done. That's why DLSS quality looked so good. And then you got DLSS Override Super Resolution mode. And over here, you'll want to select DLAA. All right, and then whatever setting you choose inside of the game, even if you choose DLSS Ultra Performance, it will always be using DLAA 100% resolution scale. So next, all you need to do is get into the game again and select DLSS in any quality over here. I'm going to set it to Ultra Performance so you can see that it is actually native resolution still. It's overriding it with DLAA. And as you can see, we're getting like 1 or 2 less FPS than what we saw previously with TAA and FXAA and anti-aliasing off, but it is much sharper at the same time. So now we don't lose detail at all in terms of the vegetation. Even far away, you can see the individual leaves. It looks great. By the way, YouTube compression is going to wreck everything, so you probably can't see the individual leaves at any time in this video, but anyways. So yeah, this is quite nice. It is not a very good experience in terms of FPS, unfortunately, and if you want to disable DLAA, you'll need to close the game, go to the Nvidia app, and turn off that override on the super resolution model, and then you'll go back into the game, and you can utilize the DLSS quality, DLSS balance, performance, whatever you want. But yeah, at 4K resolution native, the 5080 is doing a decent job considering it's running ray tracing at native 4K, you know, with DLAA on top as well, which is a little bit more intensive than other anti-aliasing forms. Just a little bit, 1 or 2 FPS, which doesn't really make that big of a difference. It's interesting to see that this game still has the pop-in shadows issue that it had on release, basically, of the next-gen update, at least. So, yeah, I don't like to see that here after so many months, actually, probably years. It still has this issue. That is very underwhelming to see. But anyway, guys, this is it for the 4K resolution test with the DLAA with the 5080. If we get inside of a forest area like this, super dense, with a lot of vegetation, it does dip down into the 30s, low 30s, actually, possibly into the 20s. You could overclock the card and achieve like 10% higher performance, so you'd be looking at like, instead of 30, 33 FPS, so no worries of dropping from 30 then. But yeah, it gets very uncomfortable and close to 30 FPS, and this is not really how I'd play this game, obviously. Like, you got a 5080, you paid $1,000 for it, hopefully less during Black Friday deals and so on now. So you don't want to play at 30 frames per second, although it does look very beautiful, and if you want to take screenshots, for example, this is probably the way to do it. And now we're gonna go down to 1440p resolution. So here we have it, 2560 by 1440 res, utilizing the same settings, DLAA still. And by the way, this game had an issue with reflex over here, which has been fixed apparently, because if you had reflex enabled, you would get around 90%, 85% sometimes of GPU utilization, and now it's back to 98, 99%, which is how it should be, basically. Let's start counting our FPS, and at 1440p resolution, guys, with DLAA, this is still not a very good experience, as you can see. It's not capable of achieving 60 FPS. Honestly, that's a bit disappointing at this point. I thought it was going to achieve at least 60 on average. Maybe it's because we are here, of course. If we go into the city area of Novigrad, and flickering shadows again, we will see 60 probably, but in dense forest areas it will dip down from 60 FPS. So if you want a native 1440p resolution experience with ray tracing, the 5080 won't really do it in this title with the RT Ultra preset as well. So now that we're in the city, seeing a lot of NPCs and so on, we're getting 65, 67 frames per sec, 67, yes, 69, look at that, how beautiful is that? You know, kids these days say that 6, 7 is alright, but I feel like 69 is just, it's still the best number. Actually, should we get out of Roach and check out some things over here, like some textures and so on? These fish actually look pretty good, you know? VRAM allocation, by the way, it's at 12 gigabytes at the moment. The usage is at almost 11. That means that a 12 gigabyte GPU would probably start stuttering just slightly here with these settings and running out of memory. But of course, with 16 gigabytes on the 5080, that's not a problem whatsoever. We got a lot of pop-in once again. Like that character over there with the green cape, he just showed up out of nowhere. It's pretty weird. Like, it does have some graphical bugs and issues that are super noticeable, unfortunately. That's the main issue that I have here with The Witcher 3 Next Gen. And I'm not sure, at least I don't remember seeing these issues in the classic version of the game. So what are they doing? Like, seriously. If you're gonna put out a next-gen update, please make sure that it works properly. Now, another option that we have is DLSS frame generation, which you can't really choose between 2 times and 4 times. It's always 2 times, you know? So we're gonna use DLSS FG right now, on top of native resolution with DLAA. And this is the older version of frame generation, but it still looks and feels absolutely phenomenal right now. So, you know what? Instead of playing with DLSS quality in this one at 1440p resolution, if you want to enable ray tracing in this one, I feel like you should just utilize frame generation on top of DLAA. This is the way to go, because everything will still be at native resolution, very sharp and detailed. And on top of that, you got the smoothness of FG. 2 times frame generation. I wish we could do like 3 times for a higher refresh rate experience, but this is already way better than anything that we've seen so far in this video. This is how I'd play compared to everything that we played with so far. Like, if this was a first-person shooter, competitive multiplayer game, you know, I wouldn't enable frame generation, and the input lag would be noticeable, but since it's a third-person game, that doesn't really require very fast reaction times and so on, and even if it did, honestly, with this amount of input lag, I would be totally fine with it. Also, some people ask me why I don't show you the input lag sometimes with the Nvidia app. It's not opening, like, I don't know why this happens, but let's go. Sometimes, in some games it opens, in other games it doesn't. It's weird. Anyway, let's stop it right there. We've been playing at 1440p for way too long at this point. But I'm glad I remembered the frame generation in this game, and I enabled it here because, yeah, that's the way to go at 1440p. Let's go down to 1080p next. And well, at the low resolution of 1920 by 1080, we're not using the frame generation anymore. We're getting native 100 frames per second with ray tracing enabled. So it makes you think that the RTX 5080 is, in fact, a 1080p gaming GPU, because at 1080p, this is the only resolution where it gets 60 plus FPS 100% of the time, right? But again, remember, we're using ray tracing, so things are super, super intensive. Damn, that water does look very good. Once again, I need to take a close look at the water next when we disable the ray tracing. I think it's still going to look good, but it's not going to have as many reflections. Whether or not it's worth enabling ray tracing, that's up to you. If you're spending $1,000 on a GPU, I feel like I would enable ray tracing, especially at 1440p and 1080p here, where it was a flawless experience. It should have been better, probably. You'd probably expect, again, a high refresh rate experience all of the time, maybe 150 FPS or so in an older title. Even with ray tracing on a 5080, like GTA 5, for example. But again, this had a graphics overall with the next gen update, and it is definitely more intensive, of course, and better looking in my opinion. Let's go over to the forest area, see how many FPS we can get here at 1080p resolution. Oof, dropping into the 70s. Damn. That is super demanding, as you can see. But it still holds up, obviously, very well. And well, if you want to play at 1080p resolution with a 5080, what I would tell you is, don't play at 1080p resolution. Upgrade your monitor as soon as possible, because this card really shines at 1440p, and 4K resolution is also really good, because 4K with DLSS performance looks better than 1440p native resolution. Yeah, 4K is the way to go. I don't care what anyone says. Yeah, we've got like 30 FPS minimums with DLAA at 4K native, but we can turn that into a really, really good experience, high refresh rate even, and have basically what I call 4K visuals. It's not going to run at 4K native resolution, but it's still going to look way better in 1440p, and on a native 4K display, it will look amazing. Anyway, around here we get 150s, 160s, so it is a high refresh rate 1080p experience right now, but it's still 1080p, right? I don't really feel like if you're spending $1,000 on a GPU, you should be playing at 1080p. That's just my opinion, of course. You do whatever you want. I know some of you guys will be playing at 1080p with a 5080. That's why I'm testing it here today as well for you. And I know you're going to enjoy the hell out of games at 1080p resolution with your GPUs. Yeah, it's fine, but I just think the jump from 1080p to 1440p is so huge that you should enjoy it on your very expensive GPU since it is capable of handling it. Anyway, let's stop it right there, guys. And the next thing to do is disable frame generation, go back to, not 8K, 4K resolution, go to the Nvidia app again and disable DLAA override. So now we're going to be able to utilize DLSS quality and so on. Also, make sure that you change the DLSS override model preset as well after you enable or disable DLAA, because every time you change this setting over here to use the 3D application setting, this also changes to use the 3D application setting. So you want to use latest there, and that's the way to use DLSS 4. Otherwise, it will be stuck with DLSS 3, which looks worse. All right, here we go, guys. DLSS is set to quality now. We're still using ray tracing and all of the other settings set to RT Ultra preset. And this is getting us those 60-ish frames per second. So very similar to what we saw at 1440p native resolution. And it kind of makes sense at the same time because right now we're using 1440p resolution internally. That's what DLSS quality does. It renders the game at 1440p and it upscales it to 4K resolution, and the end result is a much better image quality-wise than 1440p DLAA. Now, it does have in this game a little bit of noise around the character. I can notice that, especially with the background of vegetation. But it's very minor, all right? It does look insanely good, and it looks better than TAAU, in my opinion, because it's also a little bit sharper than TAAU. We're getting down into the low 50s at times, which is not great, but you can always utilize some frame generation on top of this, which will make it great, in my opinion, I think. Oh boy, come on, this one is a harder one to kill. Where is the HUD, by the way? Did I disable that? But yeah, guys, as you can see, it doesn't really dip down from 50 frames per second in dense forest areas, but it does dip down from 60 FPS for sure. So it's not really that great of an experience here with DLSS quality still, even with ray tracing, and this is where I start thinking that the game isn't really that well optimized, because in my opinion, a $1,000 GPU should be capable of doing ray tracing with DLSS quality without the need of utilizing frame generation, you know, or maybe I start thinking that this GPU should have been faster. And that's also another thing, right? The 5080 should have been a faster GPU. It should have at least matched the RTX 4090, you know, in terms of performance, raw performance. It's the first 80 SKU GPU that doesn't even match the 90 SKU from the last generation. Very underwhelming, right? This GPU should have been faster, basically, and it's quite disappointing sometimes. But that doesn't mean that it's a slow GPU, right? 4080 Supers are also really good cards, and this one is a really fast card as well. It just should have either been cheaper or faster, right? Oh boy, but maybe with Black Friday sales, it's going to be worth it. I don't know, guys. I don't know yet. But anyway, we're getting around 100 FPS. This is with frame generation 2 times enabled, by the way, on top of those 50 to 60 that we were seeing before. Over here in the city, it would be getting 60 FPS. So it is very solid of an experience. I got used to the input lag. I can notice the input lag this time around. Previously I could as well, but it was negligible. Right now it's not negligible. I can feel the difference very much, but you get used to it. After like 10 seconds, it feels good, feels natural still, it feels responsive. It's fine. But what if you don't like frame generation and you want to avoid frame generation altogether? Well, there's always the option of using like balanced and performance DLSS. Let's use balanced first. It looks very similar to quality DLSS. Because again, it's DLSS 4. If it was DLSS 3 or 2, it would be very bad looking. But since it's DLSS 4, it looks pretty damn good. Let's see if it drops from 60 FPS still on balanced DLSS. Over here, we would definitely be dropping from 60 on quality. Damn, it's holding it very well, the frame rate. Look at that. Okay, 58, 59. So it still dips down a little bit. The good thing is, 5080s do overclock very well. So you can just give it a little bit of an OC and you will achieve like 5 more FPS. So it will be perfectly stable above 60 FPS with balanced DLSS here. But I'm more curious about DLSS performance because in most of my games I tend to utilize DLSS set to performance with these 50 series and 40 series GPUs. I don't use the 30 series anymore in my main PC for gaming, you know, which is not this one, all right? It's another one with a 9950X 3D, which is very overkill, but you know, AMD sent that CPU, so I'm using it in my personal rig. I'm also undervolting it a lot. Anyway, guys, this is performance DLSS. It is playing pretty well. Obviously, frame time isn't as stable as with frame generation, which is a little bit of a shame. I would love to have seen a little bit more optimization, a little bit more stability in this game, but doesn't matter. It still feels like a smooth experience anyways. And now, of course, we don't drop from 60 FPS at all. However, I did expect a bit of a higher frame rate here. Because we're only getting, what, like 20 more FPS, 15 to 20 more FPS than quality DLSS, which is not a lot. Usually in other games, you see a much bigger increase. And over here in the middle of the forest, I can notice a big difference, a big drop-off in terms of quality with performance DLSS. So I think I would stick to quality DLSS plus frame generation in this one at 4K resolution because performance DLSS isn't as stable in terms of image quality. It's super noisy for some reason in this game. If we get out of the forest and go right here, for example, now it looks way better and way closer to native resolution and that DLSS quality as well. Yeah, now there is no problem whatsoever with this picture quality, in my opinion. Even the grass over there looks great. Yeah, this is great now. Alright. Also, another benefit of DLSS that not a lot of people talk about is that the power utilization of the GPU will be lower when you're using these technologies. So if you don't really lock your FPS or undervolt your GPU to consume less power, using DLSS, just a simple toggle, will make it use less power, as you can see. It's not a lot. I think it was using like 310 watts with DLAA. But it is still a little bit of a difference, 10% right now in this case. Now, let's enable DLSS frame generation on top of performance DLSS here at 4K, and now we're up to the 120. So we're getting very similar FPS to what we saw at 1440p, for example. And 4K with performance DLSS also got more FPS than at 1440p. Yet this does look quite a bit better, in my opinion, than 1440p resolution. Doesn't really drop too much. In terms of the visuals, it's not as noisy with frame generation. I think because frame generation softens the image a little bit, it makes it more pleasant to look at in these super vegetated areas. Like areas with a lot of vegetation like this looked pixelated previously, and now it just looks a little bit softer. Like it would look if you were using TAA, for example. So it's not bad looking, at 4K resolution especially, right? I think it works pretty well, and maybe I would choose this. I'm not sure if I would choose this or quality DLSS plus FG, but FG on is a must, at least for me in this one with the 5080. It works pretty well. But now it's raining, so it's not as beautiful anymore because it's super dark. So we're gonna get out of here. But first, I will disable ray tracing. I will also set DLSS to quality. I should be doing DLAA later, without ray tracing, but let's do DLSS quality first. Everything else is still the same here, so Ultra Plus settings now, but without the ray tracing enabled. That's what we're using, and let's disable frame generation as well. And it's at 4K res, of course, and I will need to restart the game to fully apply things. And here we have it. Look at this. It's looking great with DLSS 4 on quality. And it's getting 140 frames per second. This is without frame generation, guys. This is native frames right now. Just by disabling ray tracing, we nearly doubled our FPS. Actually, we more than doubled it right now. This DLSS quality, we were getting like 60. So, yeah, kind of crazy, isn't it? Water still looks great, but of course, we don't have reflections whenever the objects are off screen. Thankfully, though, this is not a case of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered, where if you disable ray-traced reflections, it looks like complete dog crap, okay? It is really bad. Over here, you still got really decent-looking reflections, but they just disappear once the objects are off screen. I mean, granted, if you really want to play with RT, with your $1,000 GPU, you can. And if you want to, you should, all right? It's just, it will work. You gotta use all of the upscalers and frame generation trickeries, but it will work. Now, where the heck is Roach, bro? Come on. Okay, I'm gonna start cutting our FPS. We're just gonna run through it. But if you don't really care much about ray tracing, if you still feel like it looks great without RT, you still see like a lot of lighting reflecting off of me and so on. It looks great, and I'm not even sure. But the shadow pop-in issue, is it still happening? Maybe it's not happening anymore. So if that's the case, you should definitely disable ray tracing in this one. I am not seeing the shadow pop-in issue anymore. Wow. How crazy is that? This also looks a lot better, by the way, than the classic version of The Witcher 3. Okay, if you're wondering. It's not ray tracing that makes all of the difference. I have no... Oh, there he is. Where the heck did you go? Oh, boy. I'm turning things on, torches and so on. But look at that. The lighting also pops. Looks great. Reflects off of the horse and me. And the NPCs and so on. Like, why use ray tracing then? Now, I want to see it with frame generation as well. Just to see if we can achieve like 200 plus FPS or something crazy like that. That is surprisingly similar. Like, what the heck? It is slightly softer. I can notice it because of FG. But why is it not working properly? We got quality DLSS going on here. We got FG on. And we get 169. Perfect. Now, I will disable frame generation. Hello? Okay. There is a little bit of a difference, but it's not 2 times the frame rate, right? 2 times FG is not delivering very good results. So just disable it, enjoy native resolution without input lag at all. Not that it's noticeable at these frame rates anyways, but yeah, this is the best way to play the game. Now, I'm back to the Nvidia app, and we will be using DLAA override right now. This is the last thing that I will try, maybe at all of the resolutions, since you should probably not use RT, you know? But let's do this, DLAA. And here we have it, the cleanest looking The Witcher 3 next gen, with DLAA right now getting close to 100 frames per second. So we're getting similar results to what? Performance DLSS previously, or maybe balanced DLSS plus FG. This is crazy. Performance DLSS plus FG didn't really drop from 100 FPS with ray tracing enabled, so it's not quite that. But maybe like DLSS balanced plus FG, which we didn't test it. I guess that would get around these FPS. This is crazy, guys. Come on, Roach, please. Please just move. I swear what the hell is... What was that? The game doesn't want me to complete the benchmark run. Anyway, around here, look at this. The least FPS that you'll see is around 84 or something like that, right? This is really solid. This is native resolution now, so no more pixelation, no more blurriness. DLAA right now. Damn! 100 plus FPS inside of here. Super clean looking graphics, no shimmering. Really sharp, really detailed. Quality DLSS still looked really sharp and detailed, of course, so if you require a higher refresh rate experience, go for that, but damn, you can play with DLAA. I would play like this. I don't care, guys. Like, RT be damned. We're down to 1440p right now, guys. And look at that. Holy! 200 FPS. Remember, this is without frame generation. This is true native FPS at true native 1440p. DLAA is just anti-aliasing on top of native res. It's not upscaling from a lower resolution like DLSS quality and FSR quality and XeSS, whatever, right? Like, this is great. Holy, with a little bit more vegetation on screen, we get down into the 150s, 160s, but it is so smooth. We disable ray tracing, we got 150 plus. How crazy is that? What the... Don't swear, Crisp, it's YouTube. But what the hell, bro? And finally, we're down to 1080p. And will this become CPU bound? I don't know, guys. Like, look at this. Okay, we are finally CPU bound a little bit. 81% GPU usage. So the 9800X3D is now the limiting factor of performance at 1080p resolution, guys. Damn. And we're getting very similar FPS what we saw at 1440, actually going over 200 very often. But once we are CPU bound, it won't really go above like 160s or so, or 150s. 60%, 59% GPU usage. So at this point, we're just testing the CPU performance, not the GPU performance at 1080p resolution. And that's been it, my friends, for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I was really thinking that ray tracing might be the way to go because it looked beautiful, lighting looked beautiful, the reflections looked beautiful, but it still looks beautiful even without ray tracing, so just disable that and enjoy clean looking visuals, native resolutions, even at 4K resolution, and it's going to be a fantastic experience. Thanks very much for watching, catch you in the next one very soon, and as always, love you all, bye-bye.